Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Raising Excellence, one of the most valuable hours in your day. My name is Tyler Bloyer. I'm filling in for Michael, and I'm of tylerbloyer.com, filling in for Michael for the MC today. And this week we are putting Tim Flynn's presentation on the sideline temporarily in respect for Valentine's Day, and we're talking about loving expressions and discussing solutions to communication challenges in relationships. So the official title for today's show is Loving Expressions: Clear the Rubble in Your Relationship. And just to do a quick roundtable of our fabulous hosts here, I'd like to introduce Agnieszka, the psychosomatic illuminator.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you very much.
And next we have Willow, the trauma consultant.
Hi, everyone.
And Deirdre, the development strategist.
Hi.
And
Glad you're
like
here.
I said, I'm glad you're here. And I'm just filling in, so I don't have any official titles or anything like that. And if you're watching this live, you can go and comment on the feeds. There's Facebook, Periscope, YouTube. I might have missed something, but there's live commentating available, and Agnieszka will moderate that and see it coming in. So feel free to chime in. But again, going back to the topic of today, loving expressions and clearing the rubble in your relationship, who would like to jump in and open up the show for us?
I have some observations about the test that we took. So that's also on our Facebook
Yes.
page. We've shared it. It's the link to the five love languages. The what's your love language test? And there were some things that happened that were strange because normally I've taken this test before, and touch is always my number one. But I think that with Eric, after we've been together for a few years now, I think I'm very satisfied with the level of touch that I get in my relationship. So my whole focus moved to gifts and getting little gifts and things like that. And so I was thinking about it, and I was like thinking, well, what are the little gifts? Why is it so important? Like, what's the big deal, right? And it doesn't. I'm not thinking of diamonds or houses or cars. I'm thinking like flowers picked from the garden, or a particularly cool looking rock, or something really simple, an apple, but something that shows that the person is thinking about you, right?
Can you tell us a little bit more about the test? Because people might have not seen the previous shows where we talked about that. So what is the test that you're talking about?
Yeah, so the general framework for raising excellence, every week we present a new exercise on Monday, and then we sort of try that on for size. If it's a longer exercise, we might try it on a few days earlier, so that by Wednesday we have something to report to you how that exercise went. And then on Thursday we have conclusions and our fallacy of the week. So today being Wednesday, we're talking about the exercise we introduced on Monday, which is the five love languages. What is your love language? Deirdre, do you want to say
Yeah.
something about how that works? What's that book all about?
Yeah. I do have the book. I have the book. It's like
Cool.
an older one. It's fairly old. I don't know. Can you see that much?
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, I had the same experience. I did it. I did the test from the book years ago, and my number one love language was physical touch. Uh, but I don't know. Something's happened. I must have grown as a person because that's no longer my love language. I always I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a bit angsty. I'm like, I'm feeling off, so I'll go get a hug from someone, or maybe from my kids, or get some type of physical contact, pat my cat. It just hasn't been working lately, and I figured out why. I don't know about you guys, but have you happened to notice any kind of messages that I've been sending, telling you how awesome you are, like maybe little gifts or anything like that? So what I noticed was that I my love language is words of affirmation,
Nice.
and that's sending cards, that's sending little messages. Uh, it
Yeah, I
really
got
helped
one.
me.
Got a Christmas gift from you.
Yeah, I
A
got
Christmas
one
card.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was I don't I felt like that was important to me at the time, and I really wanted to share that with you guys. Now I know why. I've kind of grown beyond the physical touch. in my love language is words of affirmation. So that's compliments are important to me. Hearing words of love. Um, what else? Insults can leave me feeling really shattered and easily forgotten. I thrive on kind words and encouragement. Um, what else? Oh, genuine encouragement, like feedback. Like I can handle that. That's all fine. It's just non-constructive criticism. I don't. For some reason, I'm not understanding. I'm not handling at this point in time in my life. So that was really insightful.
Yeah, I can really relate because when we deal with change in our lives, sometimes it all the things become a little bit more challenging and harder to deal with. So like, I remember when I was living, in Quebec, and I really didn't like it, and I was very sad and upset about it. Um, my reactions were very different to certain things than they are now. Like I'm much healed from that experience now.
Mm.
Deirdre, I'm interested in something you said because you said before it was receiving gifts, and then you said that you felt like you've grown up since then. So why do you say that that's growing up? Is receiving gifts in your mind, or back then it was more of a younger love type
Oh,
of thing, or what was that?
it was physical touch. It was physical
Okay.
touch for me. And I don't know. I would put that down to my past relationship. Maybe I definitely know I didn't get any type of physical touch, and I felt very after that relationship. I felt very childlike. I felt very afraid. I was with that person for such a long time. I kind of didn't have that chance to be an adult by myself, and that was a very scary time for me. So I put it down to when I took the test at that time, which wasn't long after that relationship breakup. That was really important to me then. Uh,
Okay.
Whereas now I feel like, yeah, I do feel like I'm lacking encouragement in my life. Even though I know that you guys are so awesome and always give me so much encouragement, I know that don't get me wrong, they always do. They send me lovely little gifts that always telling me how wonderful I am. Even if I send a message saying, oh, I'm just feeling really low, I get all this warmth and love back.
It is different
Um,
though too. Like when you're receiving it online, as much as well-meaning as people can be, it is not the same thing as being able to go over to your friend's house, sit there with them, and just breathe in the same air together. Like it's a totally different experience, and it gives you a different level of encouragement than just words online can.
yeah, I have noticed that if I go and catch up with one of my friends, so we manage to schedule our time together. It is nice. I always walk away uplifted. And it's not like they were encouraging or anything. I just felt not crazy. I felt normal. Like,
Connected.
oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Friends, people with whom you don't feel crazy.
Or people with whom you can feel crazy and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I like
Yeah,
a
that's okay.
particular brand of crazy with my friends. If you can't be weird, we just don't need to be around each other because I got a lot of weirdness over here and I need to let it out sometimes.
Friends, people who
Yeah.
can handle our crazy.
Yes, that's exactly what
Yeah.
People who didn't self eliminate.
Mm.
Willow, what were your test scores, or what was the top one?
So my top one did not change, but my second one totally flipped. My first one has always been physical touch, and Deirdre, you hit on a really good point, like not having a lot of physical touch in childhood or early relationships can really like if you don't get that, it's kind of a constant need. You really need that physical. I used to see little old ladies at the hair salon who would come in and they would almost start crying because you were touching their head. And it occurred to me, I
Yeah.
was like, this is the only time they get touched. They don't have people just come over and hug them and play with their hair. And girls do this all the time. But what was really funny is previously it was receiving gifts as my second one. And now it is words of affirmation, and receiving gifts has gone all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but it's interesting to notice the difference.
it's less meaningful to you. So if and it's not like a mean thing or anything. It's just the physical touch, the words of affirmation are just more important at this point
It
in time. Like
it
it's
has
that
a greater
change has happened.
effect. Yeah.
It's
I
like
want
for
to
me,
send it to my wife to see what her top score is now. Do you guys do
it
that? Do you send
it
this to your partner and have them take it and use that information to kind of work on that, or?
Yeah, I did. I
yeah,
did. And by the way, all the listeners, I'm sorry about all the sound issues earlier. I fixed them now. We had issues.
awesome.
Oh.
At least we got somebody that fixes things,
I
because
didn't
otherwise it'd probably just
realize.
be screwed up.
I didn't realize that my computer got confused and it was playing stuff in my headphones and also through the speakers at the same time. And I kept looking at the gain going, what's going on? And so I figured it out. Hey, yay, doing it
Good
Thank
live.
work.
you.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you guys would suggest, should I send this to my partner, and would that be like offensive in any way, you think, or how would you approach that?
I don't think it would be
I would.
offensive. Did you want to go?
I don't either. No, no, you go. I was just going to say it's very to me. It seems very need. Like I'm able to assess my needs. Like oh, I didn't know that that was a need for me before. It used to be physical touch. Now my needs have changed, and now I can better understand that. So you go.
I think
I
it would
don't.
be a good thing for Valentine's Day. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah, Willow.
I was gonna say I don't think that it would be offensive at all. I just think that the approach is always what matters because you can be the least the smallest amount of bit like critical, and sometimes it can blow out of proportion because you're not really sure what happened. Um, you had asked what would be the best way to approach that. How I usually do it is be like, I did this test, I found out this information, and it was really interesting. Would you also like to, like, I would be interested to know what your language is because I didn't realize we had different languages. That would clear up a lot. Because I had a
Yeah.
friend who actually bought the book and tried to give it to a boyfriend, and he got like really upset because he was like, what are you saying, we have issues? I know how to communicate, I understand you, what are you saying, I don't know you? And she was just like, I so
Obviously not if you're having
What do
that
you do about that?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that all
that
about
that.
the approach. I agree with you. Here, take this. I need to figure out, what's wrong with you. That
Yeah,
would be a different
exactly.
approach than, hey, I just took this and this is what I got and I'm interested. I was going to do that earlier. I think I just got sidetracked. But I think it'd be good to do in
Mm,
preparation for Valentine's Day. Me and my wife have been talking a lot more in the evenings, and so this would be a good topic for us to discuss because, she might feel like I need to be aware of her scores more than mine.
Well,
I
she
think I
needs
have
to
more
be aware
to
of
do.
yours, right?
uh,
Sure.
the
I
way
was
that
gonna
I
say,
found it, it's I'll just quickly go. The way that I found it, it was more just like I rather than kind of getting buried too deep in it and relying too much on it, is more like oh okay these things are important to you like it's to me it was easier than guessing, easier than having deep conversations and having to kind of dive too deep into it when I don't have a lot of time. I can do the test. There's a couples test on there on the link, uh, and we can talk about it later. Like going, oh, okay, so what type of words of affirmation would be important to me, because there's actually different types specific to that category.
Yeah, and if we're talking about clearing the rubble, I mean, maybe that some of the rubble is this not talking about these things, right? So it might not be physical rubble in the way, but it's this air, this thick air that's not being penetrated between you that could create a lot more bridges between the two of you's communication by understanding these things. So I totally see the value in it. I've only become aware of it just today, so I'm definitely not an expert or anything like that. But Agnieszka, you took the test today as well, I understand. And do you have any updates on your scores or?
Yeah, so my score when I took it years ago was always physical touch was my number one. But going through the last 4 years with Eric and our relationship changing a lot, our moving across the country and all of that, something shifted inside me, or maybe I'm satisfied. Maybe everything is good in the physical touch department, so I don't feel the need. So that's another thing. Like maybe this test actually shows what we're actually lacking, as opposed to what our actual language is, because as it shifts with
Mm.
our needs, right? Because I've noticed that lately I've been buying. So my sorry, let's back up. My score changed from physical touch to words of affirmation. Oh, words of affirmation used to be my number 2, so it's physical touch, words of affirmation. Now it's words of affirmation, gifts, and then physical touch is like number 4. So
Mm.
why? And I've been buying Eric all these gifts every time we'd go to the grocery store. I would buy him a little, like, oh, I saw this really nice whatever pineapple, and or this really like snack that you like, or this specific type of cheese that's like from French from Quebec. I always, and I didn't realize that I was doing that because I was lacking that. It's not
I
his
think
Yeah,
thing.
you're like,
He
you hit
doesn't
the
care.
nail. You hit the nail on the
yeah,
head. It shows what we're
yeah,
lacking. Because I was
Yeah.
thinking the
yeah.
same
It's
thing with like the Christmas cards. And if that's what you're needing, and you're obviously, if it's something you need, you're gonna try and give it to other people.
So that means that next
yeah,
Christmas we should all send Christmas cards to Deirdre because she's the one who actually wants that.
yeah.
although
But
I'm
Well,
it
wrong,
maybe
by
by
the
was
way.
next year,
it.
by next year that maybe changes.
Oh, that's true.
Maybe we'll have to send ourselves and
Shit.
give you a hug.
Yeah,
Shout out
but
to
I didn't. I
Cassandra.
what?
Shout out to Cassandra who
Yeah.
just was lovely to us on chat. So thanks, Cassandra.
Hi.
Do we
Thank
Oh,
get
you
to
for
hear what her
now
watching.
the
lovely
pressure's on. Pressure's
was
on now.
I was gonna say, do we get to hear what her lovely words were?
She said I'll take it. That was earlier. I didn't want to interrupt you guys, but I
Oh.
didn't want to ignore her either because hey, somebody
She'll
loves
take the
us.
test, is what she means. Yeah, she'll take the test.
Either
So I'll
that
send it
or
to her.
Either that or it was right after our microphone, so it might have been something about that. But who knows? It's all good. I still shout out to Cassandra no matter what.
But
Yeah,
I didn't realize that that's what I was doing with all of, because I've sent a lot of messages. I didn't realize that was what I was doing until I took the test, and I'm just like, oh, my little heart's crying out for some encouragement. And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes my words of affirmation a lot more it there's a lot more insight to that. That's not the words that I'm looking for, but it's the best I can string together right now. Um I've been doing the checking in on everybody. Like, how you doing today?
Mm.
You doing all right? These are the things you're dealing with. Okay, well, here's some tips. Okay, I hope you can get through that. Move on to the next person. How are you doing today? Are you checking in?
Nice.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. It's been so helpful. Oh my gosh. She
Good.
messages me every morning, and I get like this little GIF, this little like funny little like morning GIF. And she asks me how I'm going, and it feels really nice that somebody's thinking about me. Yeah, somebody wants to hear about my day, even if it's just I just woke up and I'm
Yeah.
Hey, my
and
mom
I'm
was
having
asking
coffee.
about you today too. She said you were lovely, and she really
Oh,
enjoyed
that's
talking to you. So
oh, that's great. She was
Oh, yeah.
she was we were talking about a story about Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, right.
It's a wonderful story.
So
Were you
so
guys talking about a bot that messages you in the morning, like a AI?
No,
no, it
No,
was
that's
no.
just
girl.
me.
Oh my gosh, no.
I'm the bot.
It's,
That's me. I'm
no,
the
she
bot.
is
Okay,
so
that's
not.
better.
It is
That's better
it
then.
is so real and authentic and genuine, and it just doesn't end how is your day. It was, if she really makes sure okay, everything's okay, and she asks really awesome cool questions too, just to make sure.
And that just proves that she's more of a peril than I am.
I
Well,
don't
thanks for
know.
clarifying. Thanks for
I don't
clarifying that,
know.
because
I
I
don't.
was thinking you were saying that you had some service that this service was sending you. Because I've seen like, dystopian novels about this or something, right? Where we get so disconnected that we need a robot to tell us.
Actually, there is a service that I am subscribed to for many, many years, but there's just like one email a day, and it's called Notes from the Universe from his name is Mike Dooley.
I was subscribed to that years ago.
Yeah, I like it.
That's hilarious.
And it is something like a nice little thought every morning. And I don't read it every morning, but sometimes it's like right on, like right on the point.
I don't like doing those things because there is a part of me. I call it a snotty part, but it's not. It doesn't like that. I can actually feel it in my mind going, I'm not snotty. But it has this thought, or I have this thought where it's like, these people don't know me. These people have never met me. How can they give me advice that's going to help me in my day? Do they really think I'm so generic?
He doesn't speak for you. He speaks for God. So, you'd have to go, he doesn't know God. But I figure
Hey.
everybody knows God, so who cares? He's probably
That
right.
is true. I was like, I can go down that road.
Sorry about the background
I feel-
noise.
I feel like Kevin.
Yeah.
I
There's
feel like
someone on
going
the
and buying one of those. Is there?
Yeah.
Or are you joking?
No, there's like a guy repairing the roof and fixing stuff. And he was on my
Well-
mom's side most of the day, but now he came over here, so
He knew you were doing a podcast.
he did
Wanna
ask.
give
He asked about it.
I want to give you cool sound effects in the background.
That's right.
Well, what were you saying you want to
Yeah.
buy, Deirdre? You want to buy a robot to send you messages? Is that what you were going to say?
Well, didn't it start off with those little 8 balls that you can get and you like shake them, you like
Ah,
whisk
yeah.
them? Or I'm
Mhm.
thinking of a box of fortune cookies. Give those a shake and kind of give that a go.
I mean,
That's the best way I can think of generic answers.
What about
Isn't that-
cards?
I was gonna say, isn't that basically what like tarot decks and dice, any of those that
Runes.
stuff does? Yeah, because
Oh,
I do that stuff, especially if I don't feel like talking to anyone. Sometimes I'll just pull out my tarot deck and I'll look at it and I'll be like, "Damn it, yes, that is something." I need to think about.
The other way.
You're like,
oh,
I was
good. You've had one of those answers too.
Yeah, and you're like, you look at the cards and you're like, you weren't supposed to give me an answer. That's the
Yeah.
whole point of using cards.
I have these Russian cards that are so mean. It's like it almost breaks your heart to do them. But no, another way of like if you want to like clear your mind and find something, you pick up any book, random book. The cyanide cookbook is just whatever, and then you just go to the middle and you read whatever first sentence your eyes fall upon. In this case, vegetables should be grown at home whenever possible. Good advice.
Yeah.
How does
good.
that
That
clear
was
the
cool.
rubble? Trying to get back to clearing
That
the
was-
rubble in a relationship.
Okay, yeah,
So
all right.
if
all right.
we were to take it from where we're at, me and my wife, we, for example, use Slack on the computer to communicate. So we're able to send each other messages more frequently, kind of like you guys are saying, receiving messages from people. And most of the time it's mundane stuff. But this has got me thinking, maybe I should get in a better habit of what we kind of did when we first got together, which was write each other messages on the board, send each other a nice text,
Aw.
leave a note before you go. And, you fall out of that, or at least I have. I can't speak for everyone. But the top score that I had was quality time. So words of affirmation is really down low and receiving gifts at the bottom. I thought that was pretty interesting. But I do kind of want to disagree with you guys saying it's like your biggest lack, because I want to rephrase it and just say I think it's a desire. It's not a lack necessarily. It's just that's my highest value of what I appreciate the most out of those questions is the way that I interpreted
Right now, today. Because in 5 years it may be different.
Yeah, and so I'd be interested in going back. But I mean, I've done things in my life kind of rearranging to be able to spend a lot more time with my family. So it doesn't really surprise me either that that's the top, because, I work here from home, and that was very intentional to spend time, with my loved ones, to be with them more. So I'm not surprised by it being the top, but I don't like seeing it as a lack. But I'll definitely have to consider that there could be some deeper psychological stuff going on there. I mean, everybody wants to spend more quality time with the people they love, so it makes sense.
I think you might be right. Because now that we all notice that for us, our particular number one or number two spot is a lacking aspect in our life, or maybe it's something that we desire more, because I don't feel like I'm lacking much physical touch, but it's still something that I strongly desire. Once you realize that, you're going to make steps to change it. So you're going to reach out to multiple people, send cards, send messages, start like connecting. And I think maybe we are saying it's lacking because we are in the process of trying to reach out and trying to obtain it. And we're struggling with that. So maybe it isn't something that we're lacking. It's just something that us three personally are lacking because we haven't reached the steps to fix
It's
it yet.
splitting hairs. It's splitting
Yeah.
hairs. It's the same desiring something and lacking it is the same thing in a way, right? But I think valuing it the most out of all the other categories is different than lacking it. If I really appreciate
Yeah.
the quality time that I have, I might not be lacking it. But that's very, getting into the fine hairs, which Agnieszka told me not to do in this podcast.
That's
Well,
that's
but again,
okay.
so we're talking about the 4 love languages and how that affects communication.
5.
5.
5.
Thank you. I always say 4 because there are the 4 agreements. See, that's where my brain
Mm.
gets confused. In any case, so yeah, one thing I wanted to add. So my top value was words of affirmation and give little gifts. And then, so I was giving little gifts to Eric, but then he just told me today that his top value is words of appreciation. So now I have to rethink my whole approach and see how I can reach out to him with words of appreciation. Because I obviously I get a lot of appreciation from him, I feel. And so,
And I think the book kind of goes further into it that there's okay, the words of affirmation is mine. We have the same number one, but words of affirmation would be different for what it could be for me. So there's also categories in that of what are words of affirmation. Like, would it be little notes written on my mirror? Well, you can't do that. I could do that for myself. That would take somebody living with me to be able to do those type of words of affirmation in the morning, or little post-its everywhere.
Not necessarily. I so like you can take the text, type it out on a piece of paper, cut that piece of paper out, stick it on your like someone's name is on it. It's a message from someone else. Just because they didn't, send it to you in a stamp doesn't mean they didn't send it to you.
by the way, yes, Igor,
Very true.
and shout out to Chris McMillan. And yes, Igor, we're discussing the 5 love languages and how we use it, how we're going to use our results to make our lives better, right?
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
communication in general.
I was
I
gonna
have.
say,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. We're all like
No.
going over each other. I'm just gonna quickly. I have a from Richard Grove's autonomy course. He printed out one of the slides. It says vision, communication, focus, action, and I put it in our kitchen because I don't think any of these things are gonna hurt anyone, right? So like if you're going through your day, like these are the things that can really help you achieve your smaller goals or bigger goals throughout that day. So that's an affirmation that I do what you guys are saying. I put little things just to remind me, of the saying or the phrase.
yeah, it works. I find it works. Just little reminders.
I do that in my kitchen, especially as well. Kurt asked me about it one day. He was like, What is all the stuff on the fridge? What does this say about us? And I took a look at it and I was like, these are all the people that I would normally have in my kitchen while I'm cooking so I could talk to. I was like, I literally have an empty seat sitting in my kitchen. No one sits in it except for me when I'm tired because it's just there for someone to sit in my kitchen and talk to me. And that's where I do a lot of my counseling while I'm cooking and I'll just be in my kitchen. I have a nice note from some teenagers from my waitressing job. I had a really bad night. I cried on the floor in front of the customers as I was taking their order.
Aww.
And they wrote me a cute little letter like, you had really good service. We really appreciated you. Hope your week gets better. I put that on my fridge, and I had a friend send me a Harry Potter wand with a note that said, "You're a wizard, Sam." And so I cut that out and I put it up there too.
Yeah, my wife did something like that with her last mastermind. They created a collage of like all the things they wanted to achieve and like the inspiring words that would get them there. And she hung it like right where she spends most of her time in the kitchen because that's where she spends her time, right where she should be. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm totally kidding.
Yeah.
She knows.
It's true.
But I look at that and I'm inspired by it because of what she put on there. And I haven't told her that yet, but it's inspiring just what she did.
See, it's not that she spends all her time there. It's just she spends more time in there than you or anybody else. I think but that's not a bad thing. It's just that's because she because you have kids and she has a family. That's
She's a
where
chef.
she has her
She's
inspiration.
passionate about it. Yeah, she's very passionate about cooking. It's her freedom. Where I like to podcast and try to help people understand certain things, she likes to do culinary work, and so that's her freedom. That's
Ooh.
her, path
I
that
like
she
that you
likes to
called it
do.
culinary work. Is that her job? Is like that's
I
what
think
she does
I think
for
it
a
sounds more like
career?
an art form.
Yeah,
It
it
is
sounds
an
really
art
cool.
It
form.
is.
You should see some of the stuff we eat. I mean, it's amazing and it's always different. And so, yeah, I look at her work as an art form. And she's the chef. She's done it as a professional in the past, and now I get the benefit of all that hard work.
It's
Nice.
awesome.
That's awesome.
So cool.
So I feel compelled to. When I was going to seek help for sexual assault issues, I had a really bad day. I walked into the bathroom and there was just this quote on the wall, which I took. It said I could take it. It's got a quote, where the quote's from, and then little words from the person. I don't know who wrote this, but it literally sits wherever I feel it's important. It's moved around many times, and so I can see it every day. But it says, "She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future." Proverbs 31:25. And this person said, "It may take time, but eventually she will be you." And I don't know, that was something that I picked up and I was like, I this needs to be on my wall, and took it home. And
Make
it's one of
that
those,
into a meme.
it's beautiful, isn't it?
Make it into a meme. We'll share it on Raising Excellence. It's definitely a Raising Excellence thing.
Yeah.
So,
So,
can you give us an example being like a trauma consultant? Like people come to you, I'm sure, with this problem we're talking about today, like clearing the rubble in their communication, not between just their loved one, but possibly others. Like, what are some stories or advice that you've talked about on that topic in the past?
Um, to be honest, the hardest part is getting people who have been especially constantly exposed to trauma, getting them to admit what's actually going on, that they're having a hard time, that they're having that emotion, and that is okay. So once you get someone to have an emotion, like I have a client who, when she's very, very angry or frustrated or a very intense emotion, she feels like screaming. Oh, my mind just went blank. Oh,
It'll come back.
yeah.
There you
Okay.
go.
So she was so caught up in the fact that she was going to scream in an inappropriate place that she forgot to remind herself that it's okay to want to scream sometimes. That is a totally normal response. And um, the words of affirmation that I use is, that's normal. That's that's like textbook, get step by step what is supposed to happen. It was the most reassuring thing. My dog passed away a couple months ago, and I had never actually gone through the grieving process. Well, this time I did. And I text my mom and my best friend, and I was like, I am going to lay down, and every time I close my eyes, I replay what happened. And it just makes me so upset that I want to start hysterically crying. So I get up to control myself because I don't want to wake my husband. He's upset too and trying to get some sleep. This moment I get up, I don't feel anything. I don't cry. I'm fine. I'm texting people. I'm talking about it. But the moment I go to lay down, it do the same thing. And I text my friends. I was like, I'm kind of freaking out. Not literally at the moment because I'm kind of numb, but I don't think this is normal. Why is this happening? And everyone told me that, Sam, you're going through shock. This is the normal steps of shock and the grieving process. And I was like, why have I never felt this before? And that took me a second because then I had another wave of sadness because I was like, oh man, I've never actually allowed myself to feel this. So, yeah, the words of affirmation of just saying, yes, you're feeling what you're feeling, and that is a normal human response.
but
That is
also
a
the
sign.
suddenness of his passing, like he died of a heart attack in front of you,
Yeah,
right there, right? Like so there's a whole complicated emotions to do with
yeah,
that, right?
yeah. But I was just talking about
The
like acknowledging it took me a minute to even acknowledge what I was going through, because as soon as they said, oh, you're in shock and you're going through the grieving process, I'm like, but I have had traumatic events happen before and I've never done this. This is very strange to me. But once it clicked and I was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm going through and this is normal. Most people get caught up with their emotions because they think that what they're feeling and what they're experiencing isn't what should be.
Mm.
I don't know how that answered the
And
question, but
it does. It really
did.
does. It kind of, grief is not something that well, I know for myself that I don't experience that every day, and to be able to know what it looks like in shock, to like that level of shock, especially if it's for someone that you loved so much. And I say someone because a pet isn't just a pet. It's,
no,
they're
they're a part of your family.
Yeah, and it's hard to recognize. Like, oh, okay, that's what it is. It's yeah, no wonder you couldn't recognize it. It's not something you kind of experience every day, is it?
And I'd say the two most important ones for someone who is like recovering from a traumatic experience, definitely words of affirmation and acts of service. I tell this to my friends all the time when they want to buy. I have a friend who is going through a rough patch, some heavy drug use, and I have another friend who wanted to buy them a gift card or give them some cash. And I was like, well, that's fine and dandy. And if you want to give them the cash or you want to, buy them something, that's fine. But if you really want to do something helpful, make them a meal that they don't have to cook, so that they can just throw it in the oven, throw it in the microwave, and they have a meal to eat. I was like, that is 10 times more helpful. I was like, or take that money and go put half a tank of gas in their car. Do something that's actually going to help them maintain the level of comfort that they have at the moment if they're really struggling. I'd say the third one, although you have to be really careful because some people don't respond to physical touch so well. Even when you're in an intimate relationship, when you're being triggered, sometimes even your loved one touching you can trigger bad responses. So I wouldn't say that that's like a go-to, but I also tell everyone that if you can't get a hug from someone, go wash your hands in warm water. Go put yourself in the corner and like hug yourself so you have pressure on your body, because that actually triggers your neural pathways to redirect into calming instead of
or the tapping for the
the
inner
tapping too.
child.
I always forget about the tapping. Also, hand on heart. I used to think because the tapping would get annoying to me after a while because I'd be sitting here doing this forever. Just the hand on the heart can sometimes help.
Or in that spot right between the throat and the heart. Like the hand
Yeah.
on the heart is
Have you
good,
tried?
but
Here, the
Have you
chest.
tried? Have you guys tried massaging your lymph glands here? You've got lymph glands. I don't
like
know
the ones
if you can
underneath
feel them.
the
No, the ones up top here, and
Here?
you massage that lymph
these
gland.
ones.
Yeah,
Huh.
and that you
Tyler,
see how
massage
it
your
kind of
lymph glands. Come on.
Do boys have these lymph glands?
Yes, they do. You can rub them side by side instead of massaging them in circles. Just rub them side by side. And how do you guys feel like once you do that? Like I find that I can
It's
feel it here.
comforting.
Just
Yeah. I
I
sent
think I do that out of habit. I think I do that sometimes without realizing
yeah.
it.
I actually just sent a friend a picture of like the tapping zones, and I was like, I don't know about anything else, but I know this part is like I showed him. I was like, it's this part that I'm talking about. But I just realized that on that picture, it depicted both of those as well. There was three
lymph
marks on the
glands?
chest.
Yeah. The under the
Yeah.
armpit thing.
Yeah, and there's some there. I was always told to do the ones up here because it's near the heart area.
Okay, I have something to tell you guys that's like going to break your brains. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this whole love languages thing and stuff, that's all cool, right? So now we know what we like. How does that relate to our inner parenting? Like, remembering that, your masculine half is your dad and your feminine half is your mom. And this is your chance to give yourself the type of parenting that you've always wanted, that you've You know, maybe as a child you wanted to be parented in a specific way, but your parents weren't you. But now you can, that you're an adult. So, how are you going to use knowing what your love language is with yourself?
Well, that's actually what, when Willow was explaining some of the advice she'd given to the people that she consults with, or that she consults, it brought me back to, oh yeah, we're not just talking about external communication here. You know, there's also the internal communication that's going
Mm.
on, and a lot of what Willow had mentioned is not necessarily what somebody is expressing outwardly. A lot of that is happening on the inside. And for me, it's big. I mean, quality time for me to be at the top score. If I'm looking at that as an internal thing, I think that's like right on the mark, because I have so much that I distract myself with on top of the things that I just am responsible for doing, that sometimes I just don't feel like I'm having a moment to myself. And I've gotten out of habits of walking, or I get out of habit of going to the gym, and I'm really not giving myself that quality time, even with myself.
Mm.
I think that rings true for me. Absolutely. It makes sense when you look at it this way.
Nice. Yeah.
That was, I like that. Uh,
Yeah.
that inward looking in. Oh, I need to be kinder to myself.
Yeah.
Well, I was
I
thinking
would
about
say so.
I think we all need to be a little kinder to ourselves every now and then.
It's a practice. You have to
Mm.
actually like uproot the traditional negative pressure thinking and replace it with this like fairy godmother.
I think the
Mm.
hardest part is being nice to those negative thoughts when that voice comes up and says, "You're worthless." Instead of saying, whatever mean thing you want to say to shut it down, it takes a lot to turn around and say, "Well, why do you think that we're worthless? Maybe that's true. Why?" What, try to under it. It takes a different amount of courage and strength. I don't even like using the words courage and strength because it's something
I
different.
I find when I've started doing that, and so how I do, because I can't look at it as if I'm looking at myself, so I pretend that I'm a third person watching myself, ask myself those questions. It kind of takes the personalness out of it, and then I get some really insightful answers. That's been helping.
That's actually what IFS does. So there's a guided meditation where, and I think I've done this with a couple of y'all, but it's basically where you imagine a room and you're outside of the room with all of your parts and you imagine this aspect of either yourself or someone else. It could be someone else doing an activity that bothers you, and then you ask your other parts, do you want to wait at the door, or do you want to come in, but you have to stay back, and you just observe this other part, or this aspect that bothers you acting, and then you observe the part who is upset. So it is like a third party where you just step back and you observe, okay, this is what's happening. This is the part that's upset or happy or is uncomfortable, whatever they're feeling. And this is just what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have a lot
Oh
of
my gosh,
issues
you
with
said it way better.
anxiety. Yeah, I was reading books on mindfulness like 10 years ago or so, and it was a lot of that, like watching the thought come in, watching the blood pressure go up, and then rewinding and going, wait, what was that? And that was terrifying for me. I mean, because I unlike some people may not have this issue with the negative self-talk, right? Like I've talked to people that are like, what, I don't have that. I never had that. And I had to admit, I did. And there's things that are going on in there that were very negative and causing a level of anxiety that was just completely unnecessary. But to Willow's
Mm.
point, more recently, what I do in the morning is, if that, especially in the morning, if that starts to occur, I'm like, no, nope, no, I'm gonna kick today's ass, and
Yeah.
you're not getting in your words today. Just almost like jumping on top of that and just saying no, like, you're not going on autopilot today. You don't get to come in and just, and it still happens, right? Like, I still have things that come up that are unnecessary, that are negatively affecting me, and it's literally my thoughts that are doing it. But yeah,
Yeah.
mindfulness meditation and the practices there were very helpful in uncovering that for me.
That was really good
I
switching language back to yourself instead of saying you to some mystical person. You're talking about yourself. Awesome. Love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you did
I do
great.
that all the time.
I, what I liked about what you did is that stopping yourself, and that kind of, yeah, even though you've been practicing this for so long, it's still there. It's something, every now and again it's going to pop up, and you have to address that. It'd be great. Oh my gosh, imagine how great it'd be if we didn't have any of these kind of things going on in our mind. It'd be, life would just feel less pressured to me.
So
But we're all.
I was
But
talking to a client yesterday, and she said I did an exercise with her and she was resistant to it, the gratitude exercise she was resistant to. So I said, well, what if you just like write down what you appreciate on any given day? And then she's apparently I said I said to write down 5,000 things she appreciates. So now every day she walks around wherever she is, she looks around to find all the things that she appreciates so she can go and write them down in her book at the end of the day. And she said that's changed her attitude to more positive. She didn't have a particularly negative attitude at all, but it was just she was starting to get down on herself a little bit. So yeah, the 5,000 things you appreciate.
Well, a lot of times, so uh, the part of her that was resistant, that was just really down on herself, we call that an exile. Or a lot of time, I don't know why I said or. A lot of times when you propose a solution, it's like telling the exile, you're not doing a good enough job. Now, what pisses you off more than doing a job for this many years and then having someone who doesn't listen to you or truly understand you say, "No, you're not doing a good enough job. We're going to try this." Like even if it's well-meaning and it's a good idea, you're automatically going to be like, "No. No. I'm going to stick with what I know."
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's hard to
funny.
take
Yeah.
advice on any level, but especially from somebody that you're not as familiar with.
The one thought I had about the negative self talk is I've really trained myself not to do it, right? And so I thought I actually succeeded, but I was wrong because all I got is a deeper cut of the same issue. So what happens now, instead of saying, oh, you're stupid or you're worthless or whatever, I never hear that anymore. I hear them because that was programmed into me, right, when I was a child. But what I hear now is like, what makes you think that you can do that? What makes you think that you can actually achieve that dream? Like what is it that is different about you than everybody else? So it's a lot softer, but it's the same bullshit.
It is the
Showing
same bullshit.
curiosity.
You know what my mum calls these that negative self talk? She calls them gremlins.
The Furies. Remember we were talking about Agamemnon
Yeah.
and the Furies. Like in the book club, we were talking about Agamemnon and the Furies. That's exactly what it is. Those negative forces that just push you into the one scene in Oresteia where Oresteus is getting ready to kill his mother, and the Furies are like, this is no time to be a child. You need to be angry. You're angry about this, and you need to take your revenge. It's time for revenge. And it's these pushy thoughts that whenever you try to soften it or let go of it a little bit, they're just like right in your face, right?
Well, so this reminds me of a story. I had a client tell me about when he was depicting his protector part, protecting, and he said protecting quotations, an exile, and he said how this exile is protected is it's kept in a cage with a chain around its neck, and anytime it acts up or it gets out of the cage, they just yank on that chain and they throw it back in there and they give it a little bit of food and water and then they just shut it in the dark. And I was like, now imagine how that exile feels after all these years, just being kept in the dark. It's going to create its own personality. It's going to get angrier and angrier. And that's where you get the deeper cuts. That's where you get more desperate cries for attention.
Mm-hmm. And the messages that you got as a child that you might have inadvertently internalized without knowing, right?
That's where I was going to go. Like, is it that negative questioning? Is it that, well, for me, I'm thinking of like, oh, I've been confident, assured in myself that yeah, what I'm going to do is the right thing. This is going to work out well. And then I've had people around me questioning it, but I've still done it anyway. And then it just went to crap, and it just crumbled, and it just went sideways. Is it just I've had experiences like that as a child, and so that questioning, that part that holds those types of questions, kind of comes up and is there to kind of save self. So I don't have those people around me anymore. But it wouldn't know. It wouldn't know that, okay, is this the same situation, or is it just kind of putting alarm bells up because it's just a different situation. I'm not sure.
So that's a pretty common symptom in CPTSD, and especially in situations of a violent assault of some sort. This is why most people, I suppose, I assume, if they've gotten training, have been trained to not interrogate, um, not to question. Like if someone says they were wearing a blue shirt, you don't say, well, are you sure it wasn't like a blue green? Because any sort of like questioning of being like, trying to get more information than what they're able to tell you, um, it can feel like a interrogation, like you're being interrogated to figure out what you did
Mm.
wrong, what you said wrong. And because your information is so scattered, you're also really insecure because you can't formulate, you can't say, this happened at this time, this is what they did, this is what happened during, and this is what happened afterwards. It's more of, I remember feeling them near me, or feeling my hair being pulled. I remember the color red. I remember the taste of blood in my mouth. Like you don't remember like specific events. So when people will try to be like, well, what happened at this time and what happened next? Well, that doesn't make any sense. A lot of people don't understand that they're being triggered by a lot more than what's actually being said.
Mm. Yeah,
Good points and highly
that
interesting. We
was
could do another
yeah.
like 2 hours on all of that, but I think we're at the top.
I know, what a good
No,
topic. I love this loving
Yeah.
communication. What a great
it is,
topic.
but we're at the top of the hour now. I know we started a little bit late, so I kind of wanted to pin a question on the board and see if we can get a couple answers, or if everybody has an answer. Just can you give one example, since the topic of today's show was clearing the rubble in your relationship, whether it's internal or external? Can Agnieszka start us off with one solid real world example of something that you've done to work on that?
Well, that realization that
Mm.
I was doing for my partner what I wanted him to do for me, and discovering what he actually wants, I will take action to give him that instead of the thing that I want.
Mm.
Deirdre, do you have any examples? Sorry to ask such a pointed question.
Oh, it's really good. For me, it was wondering why, no matter how much touch I was giving myself, that I still wasn't addressing what I was needing, and that's why I say, oh, I was missing it, or I was lacking it, because I was approaching how to comfort myself in the wrong way, and I was trying to find others like, oh, okay, they must be missing this, and going kind of out there. Um, that was yeah. That's what yeah. I can't remember what the question was. Sorry. I hope I answered it right.
Yeah, you're good. You're perfect.
Oh, thank
Uh,
you. You're lovely.
for me, it's kind of similar to what Deirdre said. A different situation, recognizing different desires and triggers that maybe I wasn't aware of before. Um, being honest about like what's going on, trying to be mindful is the best way to clear the rubble. Because in my opinion, it before you identify it, it's like you're trying to sweep up rubble with a tool that you can't see, and you also can't see what you're
Yeah.
sweeping up. So it's not exactly the most efficient, and the best way to clear the rubble is to be honest about what's around you, and then start with the thing nearest to you. Like start with the biggest issue, the thing that you just can't stand anymore. You need it to change.
Mm.
Those are all great answers, and not just answers,
What
but
about
advice
you?
that Yeah, I think that's like
Ah,
actionable information. For me, internally, I'm gonna kind of piggyback on that negative self-talk. Just wanted to throw this in there too. That one, I worked on that for a long time and thought, like Agnieszka was saying, that I was winning and that I had conquered this thing. And then children came along, and they are like not just a mirror, but a magnifying glass with a mirror. And
yes.
that's the first time I thought of that magnifying glass mirror together. And they're like pointing out all the
They're
things
circling
that
it in
you thought,
red.
yeah. And that,
Yeah.
like you were saying, Willow, that thing that had been living in the basement that you thought you could just ignore, like
Guess what?
suddenly rears its head and
The
it's
kids
there and
found the
it's.
key.
Yeah.
Why
And,
do you think
but
I never had any?
Why do you think I've been married 10
Oh,
years and don't have any?
it's so what he's talking about is so lovely. It's just that, oh, I'm feeling so tired right now, and it's just like, I just need some space. No, they're gonna come and they're all gonna kind of stick to me. It's like, oh, Mum's just really wanting some alone time right now. We know, Mum. Can I have a hug? Okay, I don't have anything left. Okay, it's and they do. I think it's like a good and a bad thing. Like, it's a bad thing. Okay, I have to deal with my triggers all the time, but it's a good thing because I get to question them a lot faster than what I would. I don't know. What do you think, Tyler?
exactly, you're nailing it on the head, and that's one that part of my communication with those young children I've had to improve constantly since having children. And um, like you said, it's good and bad because it brings the issues right into the fore. I would say it's bad for people out there, in this case not myself, that haven't even begun to deal with any of that stuff, right? And then suddenly now it's all out on the table, and you may not even have the mind to deal with it. But then, externally, to wrap up the question, is just I feel like something that not necessarily that I've done, but that I'm kind of in the process of doing is just opening up that communication more. And so, like, my wife and I have been sitting in the kitchen while the kids are off playing at night, just talking. And we don't have a particular agenda, we don't have a particular topic, but we're just spending quality time like talking with each other. And I think that in itself, like, we can get esoteric and we can get really psychological, but just sitting down and listening, like, and practicing that again and having the time to do it,
Yeah.
because the kids were really young and there was none of that. And that they come in the room and they don't want us talking. Now they're getting to that point where they'll leave us alone for 10 minutes without realizing it, and we're getting that time again. And so that's been really effective.
How
And
old are your
already
kids now?
1, 3, and 8. So the younger ones are the problem. Now,
Yeah.
when we're
Yeah.
when we're discussing things, like, they literally won't let us talk. Like, and they don't like it. They
Yeah.
don't like when Dad gets like this, and I get a little bit excited, and I get on the soapbox. They'll start talking over me and screaming
Yeah.
and causing problems for no reason. And that itself is like, I don't get to say what I want to say right now. Well, maybe you don't need to say it right now, and you can just calm the hell down. And
You,
that was a big
That's
thing too.
That takes me
that's right.
back.
They're still holding on to that that babiness, that 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 I'm hungry.
Well,
That babiness that they have to, when they get to that point where they have to go past that, and it's hard because they don't understand that you're not paying attention to them right now, because you're having a conversation and engaging with somebody else, and yeah, they have to learn that they don't need that instant, um, like if they're hungry, for example, that instant attention, because it's okay. Like, it is going to get sorted. They have to know that. Like, yeah,
well, that's also a biological response under a certain age when the mother shows any amount, and I mean any amount of inattention, like looking the other way and talking to a friend, that signals danger to a child. They say, my mother is not watching me. Anyone can come run up and take me. An animal can come out and just drag me away. Like, they don't really think these things because they don't know what these things are, but their bodies
it
react
is
as if they're in
feeling it.
danger, and they will vie for any attention that they can possibly get drawn onto them. And it takes a while for their bodies and their brains to rewire that from, oh, mom not paying attention to me doesn't mean I'm going to die. It means
Yeah, that's
I have to wait a
literally
minute.
what it is. Yes, it is.
And that's really hard because when your body is telling you you're about to die, there's no amount of calm down that's going to work.
Calm down never works. It never
doesn't.
works. It's never ever worked in the past history of humanity. It's just one of those words that like people say, but it's not logical. It's never worked. I wanted to add something else, a different perspective maybe. So when I did Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation, I received a lot of memories, or I retrieved a lot of memories from my early childhood, like early, like few months to 4 years old. There were certain situations that I was grappling with as a baby and had a hard time. I was like moved, like I lived with my parents and then I lived with my grandparents, and there was that transition, and that was very difficult for me as a baby. And so when I went to the silent meditation, a lot of these memories came back. And one of the really persistent memories was that as a 4, 5, 6 month old baby, as a 1, 2, 3 year old child, even as a 4 or 5 year old child, I felt it was my responsibility to get my parents to communicate properly. Like, for some reason, in those memories, I think, okay, this is my job. This is why I came. This is why I was born. I was born to make sure that these two can communicate. And there were a lot of thoughts of failure and, oh my gosh, this will never work. Like, I can't make these two communicate. I'm trying so hard and it's not working. I'm not succeeding with my quest. I need to do better. A lot of thoughts like that, which we don't expect from a 3-year-old, but that's what was going through my head when I was having these memories. Whether that's real or not, that's still up for discussion.
Well, the thing we don't really think about with children is they need us to survive. And the consequences of that is, if for some reason, for whatever reason, the parents are not able to fulfill all of those needs, any need that is not fulfilled will be fulfilled by the child. The child will do whatever it can to make itself as easy to take care of as possible, and they'll fulfill those roles to try and, if your parents are constantly arguing and it's a threat to your family unit, the child's going to be like, okay, well, I have to figure this out because I need to live. I need my parents. I need them to communicate, and therefore, if I need it, then I must get it for myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always thought it was some kind of a mystical quest on getting two people who are extremely different to get along, that I failed at. But that sounds a little bit less pressure.
I think we all romanticize. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually. Deirdre said it better than I did. That is Agnieszka speaking right there. Like, you, the part called self. The only way it could rationalize this was, you know what? I'm going to turn this into a romanticized vision of this fantasy adventure to go and fix these people because I am just that awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't really think I'm that awesome, though. I just think it's a good adventure, maybe.
But you thought you were awesome enough at 3 years old to take on that adventure.
It was more like a responsibility. I think that the words in my head were responsibility. But it makes sense with your explanation, too. It would be a responsibility. Well, so should we
Lots of good food for thought. Yeah, I think that is a good place to stop it. But I think that discussion was highly interesting. So it was nice to let it trail on there a little bit, and lots to think about coming away from this. But you guys can continue this discussion tomorrow. I will actually be back tomorrow with you. So we'll all be back to discuss, and also covering the fallacy of the week. So I'm excited to do that with you guys and figure out what that is, because I haven't seen an episode yet where you've covered that.
We should probably introduce the fallacy of the week earlier in the episode tomorrow, because we can discuss it in relation to relationships, I think.
I agree. It's a pretty big aspect when considering communicating with other people.
Yeah. Maybe we'll start with the fallacy.
Good plan. Good plan. And just to remind everyone, they can watch this show on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And they're all over the different social networks, and you should be familiar enough by now. If you're watching this, you obviously found it. So congratulations. And it was great hosting. Agnieszka, thanks for inviting me on. Thanks, Willow
Thank
and
you.
Deirdre, for the great discussion. And I
Thank
look
you. Who
forward to
are
doing this
you?
again.
Who are you
Yeah, where are
again?
you from?
I'm Tyler, and I have a website, tylerbloyer.com. Is a very basic way to put out information for me. So
And a great
that's who I am.
podcast.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well,
All
it's
right,
great having you on.
everybody. Thank you very much, Tyler. We're going to close this out. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.